not going to deter us.
Yes.
I didn't want to put the laptop on my. All right, so I believe that we are live.
All right.
Yes. It's totally different for me. It's my first time going live on here and on Zoom, but we are live. Okay, great. So
Wonderful.
I want to just say welcome. I am going to share, go on Facebook and share if you guys want to share as well. It's under the Inspired by You page if you're looking for it. So I just want to share it on my personal page first, and then we will get started. Share. Oops. Where did I share that to? Hold on, I've just here it goes. Join us. Hey everyone, my name is Santeresa Wilson. If you do not know me, I am the CEO of Inspired by You, which is a mentorship slash coaching program. I do mentorship for small businesses or people who are looking to enter into entrepreneurship. Um, I do that by showing them how to become an entrepreneur on a small budget. And then I also do trauma recovery life coaching. So today I am joined by Dayna Wilson McGill and Lydia Peart, who will join me today as we discuss your job, your rights, and your perks. So, how this came about is having conversations with different people and really just trying to understand that it's so many benefits that are offered to us through our companies, through our current places of employment. That we don't take advantage of, and doing research and looking back on my own personal like forms and things. Sometimes you get paid and you're paying about $15,000 towards insurance, towards benefits, and we don't actually utilize the whole package of everything that they give us, right? So we wanted to kind of come on. I wanted to bring together some professionals on here who actually, Lydia Peart deals with consulting. She can actually kind of tell us a little bit about herself in a second. And Dayna is a certified HR professional. So real quick, Lydia, if you could tell us about yourself, and when you're finished, Dayna, if you can tell us about yourself, and then we'll kind of get started.
Also, good morning. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. Um, Santeresa, this is a pleasure to even come on and have this discussion. Again, this was an ongoing discussion because we couldn't exhaust it even on tonight. But my name is Lydia Peart. I am the CEO of LP Consulting Services. And what that comprised of is, along with the mentorship of individuals or corporations, consulting and giving them strong recommendations on how to revisit their business model, um, plan out or phases for their capital funding. We do individual preparation for job seeking, career choices, profiling. Also do some grant writing, and a scope of also consulting them. The great thing about LP Consulting, we don't just stop with them getting the job. Once they get the job, they need the maintenance of navigating through the employee handbook, the employee management, um, making the right choices with their offers in terms of benefits and those things like that. So we bring a wealth of skill set to the table with that individual who wants to get that dream job.
Well, welcome, welcome. And Dayna, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dayna Wilson McGill, and I live in the Tampa Bay area. And I am in the financial services industry, and I have a strong background in change management, HR, as well as strategic and operational planning. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm looking forward to just having a good conversation about benefits and just making sure that we're fully maximizing what we have at our employers and making sure that we get the best out of it, because as you know, we give our best to our employers every day. So let's make sure that we're taking advantage of all of those offerings. Thank you, Santeresa.
Yes. So thank you guys again for coming aboard. Thank you for coming. As stated in the description of our live, this is for informational purposes only. Please do feel free to ask questions, but we do want to redirect you back to your state and also to your employer to find out those laws, those procedures, and those things that would directly pertain to you, right? So we can't, necessarily guarantee everything that you hear is offered at your job. We can't necessarily say it is or isn't, but we can tell you that, these items have been offered, they can be offered, and it may be something that's available to you. So you go for a job interview, you go to a job and you have this interview process. And Lydia, I remember having a conversation with you probably a few weeks ago, and just really, really, really briefly, and then you can kind of segue into the employee manual. In the interview process, I know for years we were taught, like, don't ask about salary, or don't say anything about your salary as of yet, or ask about the benefits package. So what would you necessarily feel in regards to that, or how times have changed in regards to, okay, I'm going for this interview, and so when do I, because I'm curious, right? I'm interviewing with you. I'm curious about what you will offer. I recall interviewing for my current job, and them having kind of on hand, because I went through an agency, that a recruiting agency, but they had that benefits package on hand prior to my accepting the offer for the position. But when I'm interviewing, when would be an appropriate time to ask? Should I wait for the employer, or should I, say that or address that in a second interview if there is one?
So I certainly would want to say that times have changed. It was often thought that if the conversation on the first interview was talking around about salary and things like that, that was really put off. But I would say that probably around the second interview, when you go in that first interview now, they're doing an assessment. You're kind of getting a feel of what the job entails. They're giving you sort of a scope. Most interviewers will kind of try to get like a personality trait type thing with you. They have quite a few interviewees, so they're going through a scope of questions. And however, in that discussion, now I'm saying this, it should be the second more than likely, but in that discussion, in that first one, if they start to talk about salary, sometimes they post a job and they have a range of what the hourly rate or the yearly annual rate is. Mm-hmm. And maybe not a very astute interviewer might just say, well, this job is this amount. If they brought it up, right, and they asked that question that they asked, do you have any questions? Uh-huh. That would be a great time to ask a question. You don't have to ask them, well, what day is payday, right? Mm-hmm. But or if you really want to know when payday, you can phrase the question, are the pay biweekly? Is it weekly? You can talk about the cycle, right? That's a good way to ask. But if you want to get into a discussion, if they bring it up, if it's in that first interview, because you're really not, most times they won't go there, they'll just talk about it. But if they're considering you and want to get towards maybe talking about the benefits and talking about salary, that's the time. Now, I think I heard you say if they don't bring it up, should you bring it up, right? I think you have to kind of judge it how it's going. You have a sense of how the interview is going, right? But in most cases, it would be when they've called you back.
Okay. So we get the job, right? And I know for me, I have no clue, right, where this employee manual is. And I have my offer letter, but then they give you this manual. And a lot of times that manual winds up in a drawer tucked away. We don't look at it anymore. You get it. You may you might inquire, like, when is, because, a lot of jobs have intranets where you could go and look up information if you want to know like when the vacation days is, pay days. A lot of people aren't concerned about that. But let's talk a little bit about the employee manual from an employee stance, right? Like, so they give us this manual, and we actually sign for it to say that we received it. A lot of times we look at some of the perks that they have in there, and I think we don't look at all the technical things. I think we kind of skim past it, right? Because it's kind of like, I don't want to know about that, right? But it's very important. That information is important. It's kind of like a contract. We are signing things on contracts. They always say the small print, the fine print is where all the meat and the information is at. And I truly believe that that's as to when it comes to the employee manual. So let's talk about the power of the employee manual, right? I know we can't necessarily cover everything, but just, if we could talk about a little bit of how important the employee manual is.
So the employee manual is the employee or the employer or the staff handbook or the employee policy, and it's connecting this employee with the job-related policies that they need to know. And as you stated, most times you get it, you skim through it, you see when the vacation days are, you see the cycle of payment, you kind of look for benefits, but you only look for personal days, sick days, and vacation days, right? You look and see, sometimes you have someone to look and see, is it a 90-day probationary period? Some jobs have a 6-month probationary period. Some have a year probationary period. Some say that your benefits that they are offering will not come in effect until a certain date. So it's based on your hire date. And so you're looking at those kinds of things. But I want to tell you, there's so many other nuggets in that employee manual. You just looked at those major things, right? And the only other time that employee manual is pulled back out is when you have a grievance, right? Or you have something that you want to go to HR or your immediate supervisor or go above your immediate supervisor, but you want to refer back to the handbook, right? As a policy, because sometimes there are discrepancies or things that go on and you want to refer back to the employee manual. So every agency should have, or they should be giving you their policies, because you're coming in not knowing. You may have a skill set, but you do not know how this company is running, right? Even if you were in a competitive company doing the same sort of work, you need to know what the policies of that agency is. And so the employee manual is very valuable. It will tell you certain things, how their cycle of things, how from reading it, and I know it might be kind of boring, but you would kind of see how they treat their employees. You'll get a sense of how they handle, especially if they have other little nuggets, like I said, that you were not aware of. If they have tuition reimbursement, if they have things that you can give back, they have different holidays that normally you would not have. Different little perks that are in that they would refer to in the employee manual. One of the things that I said, and I know we couldn't exhaust it, is that the employee manual is drafted usually by if it's a nonprofit or for-profit, they have the management that come together and they draft it, right? They have in the HR department or their fiscal department, because these things affect the whole makeup of the company. So those things are in place, and it may have been written when the company was at a certain status. All right. So why is this important to talk about this now? Because of the pandemic and COVID, things have certainly impacted companies, and they have not revisited their handbooks, right? And certainly things need to be revised. And I'm just speaking as employer, things have to be revisited. So, but you have that handbook in your hand because they gave that to you pre-pandemic, right? And so you have these things in your handbook. And so it's important to know if you're not returning to work, there's going to be a lot of different guidelines and changes. So they're going to be making some modifications. But until that happens, what's in print now is what's going to be valid.
And
It
I
can't
see
be so I want to just put that out there, and we can revisit that. And I say that because we do know that there are a lot of changes. We'll hear more about some of the changes when later on, in the conversation. A lot of great things are happening, even though we're going through what we're going through as a country, but there are some good things for employees to take advantage of. But until it gets into the employee handbook, all right, there are memos, there are executive orders, but they got to get there. All right.
So are you saying, because I know for me, like and recently with COVID, I've been getting a lot of emails about a lot of changes, a lot of modifications, a lot of policy. Like they just June 19th, they just made that a company holiday, and gave everybody off that day, right?
And that wouldn't be in the handbook.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so we're constantly getting memos. So are you saying that the addendums though the
addendums will go into the handbook.
Okay.
They definitely will go into the handbook. Now, I'm not saying that they cannot. They have the ability to make addendums, and they will make modifications, and they're going through the process of notifying you. You understand? And so that by them doing that course of whether it was an email or making you aware of or having you sign off on it, that you are aware of the changes, that is them saying this should be added to what you currently have, right? But if that's not actually done, or for instance, some things they did and now it was only supposed to be for a period of time. I'll use an example. There were some changes of rate of pay during the upsurge of COVID, right? And some healthcare essential employees were given double pay, triple pay for a period of time, but it expired, and it was supposed to be for 30 days, and then they were given a memo, they were given an email regarding it, they signed off, and then on the day of, which they said it was going to only be for that period of time, someone advocated and it was extended. You understand? So, but in this particular, and we're not naming people, not everyone knew of it. You had to know about it.
Okay.
One of those type of situations to get the extension. So that's what I'm saying. They're making addendums, but you need to know what's in this book, because that's what's going to.
You got to check those emails.
If you didn't check the email to know.
Tons of emails.
I'm calling. I understand there's going to be an increase. Yeah.
You just kind of skip past those emails sometimes. You'd be like, oh, it's just a company, or like, oh, that's just the president of the company. He's not saying much, and a lot of times we skip past them. Or you look and your email account is so high, or the numbers are so high, you're so engulfed in your regular work that you don't even have a time to reflect or go back and look, and you're missing out on things. I'm like, and me too, it's just so much, especially working from home in that transition, and just trying to adjust and readapt to everything that's going on.
The policies are, as I was saying to someone earlier, a lot of things are fluid right now. We've been impacted with a lot of guidelines, different public safety guidelines, different things in terms of how we are actually doing business. And so in the employee handbook, it would probably talk about chain of command and who you report to, who's responsible for oversight. Well, during this pandemic, a lot of those people were working remotely. And different things were changing, policies. There were a lot of questions around, and policies were what was the policy last week is not the policy this week.
Yeah.
And
so it's important. It's
It's
important that
important to
we,
know.
if you don't have your employee manual, if you do have one, go look for it, start reading things through. It probably will give you some clarity in regards to what's going on, give you some clarity in regards to the changes that's happening, who to actually speak to. Some HR departments have 800 numbers that you could call. Some, probably have an email that you could call. Some have like one group email and different people can contact various, members. So I think it's just really just being more aware of, okay, I need to know what's going, especially now that you're home or even if you're not home, just make some time and to kind of go back and reflect. So we're talking about changes, right, Dayna? And
Yeah.
from the standpoint of, okay, I have this benefits package that I pay about $16,000 for, right? And
Right.
I'm not sick, right? I don't need it. I could go to the pharmacies and get the flu shot. I could go, here and maybe get a COVID test. And I don't really necessarily, I'm not utilizing my benefits package. And it was an article in Forbes that said that most people pay for insurance, but they don't utilize, what it's actually for. They say, besides the benefits, they was like the 401k, the EAP program, which is the employee assistance program. They was talking about life insurance, some discounts programs, some legal programs. So I wanted to bring you in to kind of talk about a variety of different benefits that people are probably like, oh, I didn't even know that. Like, I always say to people who travel a lot, and recently even for myself, like you have that, not all insurances offer it. Again, you have to really check. But when you go into the back end of your insurance, something is as simple as the fitness program, where I think it's about $25 a month, and you could go to really any gym that participates. But it's so many fitness centers that participate that you could pay, instead of paying like the $10 for your local gym, you could only go there. If you add on 15 more, if you travel wherever, you can always just go to a gym and work out, or, and try it out. So I wanted to bring you in because for me, getting older, I tend to look more in depth in regards to our benefits packages and the things that they offer. I just purchased glasses probably a couple months ago, but my eyeglasses, the company, the insurance company, they actually had additional coupons on their site that I could use on top of my insurance. Or I was, oh no. Okay,
What's
am I
wrong?
there? It's the weather here in New Jersey is like
Oh no.
horrible. My whole screen went black for a second. But it was telling us, about coupons and things that we can use on top of the insurance. Also, the eyeglass provider, I brought a pair of glasses, you guys, and I lost it. All I have is the case. Okay. I have no clue what I did with the glasses. But when I went back, because I'm like, okay, I got to pay out of pocket, he was like, no, you didn't use all of your benefits, and it covered another pair of glasses, which I didn't know, because the paper says only one pair per year or one pair every 2 years. But I guess it really depends on where you get your glasses from. So what I wanted to do was kind of, bring you in. I know that, you have a ton of knowledge and wealth in regards to benefits and things. So if you could just kind of talk to us about some benefits and some things that a lot of times we overlook as employees. And again, I know you're in Florida. So again, everybody, check with your employer, in regards to information. Programs could be worded a little bit different in the state that you're in the city that you're in. So, always just double back and check. I just wanted to put that out there because I know you're going to have some great information. But
yes. Well, first, what comes to mind for me is that with health benefits, the cost increase every year, right? So it's like, how can we save a buck? Every penny counts. So a lot of the plans that are out there now are high deductible. For example, for me personally, I have a $1,500 deductible. So it's like, wow, nothing's going to be covered until I incur $1,500. Well, that's not true. A couple things I want to point out to your point with the vision plan. You were talking about some coverage that you might have had for your at the eye doctor. Well, some of these health plans and vision plans, they actually have certain things like well visits. For example, the routine exams where you're just going to get your eyes checked out. A lot of those, you don't have to meet the full deductible. Usually for those, there is maybe some type of copay around, say, $20, $30, and you get your visit and you get your exam, and then you're good to go. Some other things that are usually not applying, or you don't have to meet your deductible before you actually get the full benefit, is the well woman exam. So when you go for your annual PAP or what have you, a lot of times you don't have to come out of pocket at all. So I suggest that everyone check with their insurance carrier to see what coverages are available. The same thing with mammograms and things like the preventative care. A lot of those are 100% covered with no out of pocket. But again, check with your individual company. That's one thing that comes to mind. Another benefit that comes to mind has to do with who is eligible to be on your health insurance. So when you get your job, you get hired, you may have a spouse that does not have a policy and you want to put them on your coverage. Okay, well, that's a no-brainer. But what about someone who lives with a domestic partner, but they aren't legally married? Or a same-sex situation, same-sex marriage, same-sex domestic partner. Well, in many cases, benefits are offered for same-sex partners, domestic partners, and things like that, where you can actually add them to your benefits. And so I encourage everybody to look into that to see what you can do there. Another thing is a lot of the new generation, a lot of times are still staying home with their parents until they're a lot older. I know when I was 18, I couldn't wait to get out of the house so I could live on my own and have my own stuff and do things my own way. But now dependents, and of course, check with your individual companies, but many times the dependents are staying on until they're 26 years old and able to get the dental, the health coverages and things like that. So now that takes a little bit of heat off of parents, so that when their kids are on their own, they're really not on their own, because, if they have a huge medical expense, they're still going to need our support. So thankfully, we've got until they're age 26.
And if I could just interject real quick.
Sure.
You have to, in regards to that, because I have my oldest sons on my insurance as well. However, when he turned 25, the life insurance canceled out, but they still kept him on the medical insurance.
Really?
Yeah. So you have to, again, you have to look at your policies, because, I know that they say that we could cover you up until 26, but I guess it really just depends on what is actually covering, because I'm like, y'all kicked him off. Y'all got, okay, I could cover him if he gets sick, but, God forbid something happened. I'm like, okay, now, so it just kind of, again, you have to look at your policies and procedures and pay attention to those emails. Because when I got that email, I was like, wait, wait a minute, so yeah, that's true.
That's good. Another thing to check in general, just with your benefits, because I know we talked about earlier how, you get the job, you get the handbook and you toss it away. It's like, hey, I'm working here, I don't need it right now. But what people need to check is when your individual benefits are effective. Because a lot of times you think, oh, it's a 90-day waiting period. Oh, I got to wait 6 months. Some benefits are offered on day one.
That's right.
For example, some employers have employees wait a year before educational benefits. A lot of employers are out there, they offer them from day one, maybe 90 days, 30 days, but check with your individual employer. Because when you first get your job, you're gung-ho, you're ready to be CEO the next day. It's like, I'm gonna move up really quickly up the corporate ladder. Check your benefits on when you're eligible to actually start incurring some of those expenses. And finally, I want to bring up, we also mentioned COVID a little bit and some of the changes. There are some changes. I have my notes here so I don't forget anything or say anything incorrectly. But basically, since COVID occurred, there was the CARE Act, and it actually provided some relief on certain expenses and when it comes to financial obligations or expenses that you might have pertaining to medical. Okay, so basically for the healthcare flexible spending accounts and the health savings accounts, there are certain things that are now reimbursable. Some of those things, and of course we're all going to be excited about it, are feminine care products. I know it's kind of like, ooh, let's not talk about those, but it's needed. So let's go there. Pads, liners, tampons, all that stuff, feminine wipes. I mean, just think about that. And this goes back to the beginning of the year. It's
Retroactive.
Retroactive. Yes. Sorry.
Mhm.
Thank you. It's retroactive to the beginning of the year. So that means if you have some of those things and you bought them earlier in the year, you can go ahead and send your receipt in if you have one of those healthcare flexible spending accounts or savings accounts, and you can get reimbursed for those. So like I said, every penny counts. A couple of other things about COVID that I wanted to mention is prescriptions are no longer required if you're buying something over the counter. And if you want to get reimbursed from one of those accounts that I talked about earlier, the healthcare flexible spending account or the health savings account. So what that means is previously, if I wanted to get reimbursed from my account for buying, Tylenol, pain patches, creams, and things like that, I needed a prescription to say that, okay, a doctor told me I need this. Now I can just go and buy it because I know I have a headache, so I need some Tylenol. So I buy it and I can take my receipt and get reimbursed. I don't have to go through any red tape anymore for those things. So that's a good win. The other thing I wanted to mention is usually with employers, they have a certain time when you enroll in your benefits. Well, with COVID, there's a special COVID-19 enrollment period, and check with your employer, but some employers may say it's from June 17th to November 29th. And during that time, you can change your medical, your dental, your vision, your health care flexible spending account, your dependent care flexible spending account as well. And so what you can change is, enrolling, you can increase or decrease your coverage. And also you will be able to add dependents on it as well. So that's a good thing. So make sure that you check with your individual employer in maybe the HR department or whoever coordinates your benefits, and ask them to give you a summary of all of the COVID changes that you can benefit from. And they should hopefully have like some type of one pager or a website or something that you can go to, hopefully, where it's all listed, so you can see the different kinds of things that come as a result of the CARE Act. And some of the changes that have taken place. So those are just a few things. I could go on for days about the different benefits, but let me know if you have any questions, and we can answer those.
So thanks, Dayna. I wanted to kind of go back just a little bit in regards to some of the benefits. So I know you were saying that the over-the-counter medication, you could use your health spending card, your flexible spending card. But so I'm like the pro flexible spending person. Every year I make sure that I elect and get that money, right? Because number one, when you say, okay, well, I want to put $3,000 on this card, the limits, some jobs, it really varies. I've been at jobs where they let you put up to $5,000 for the year. Some jobs let you put $1,500. I know now that they're letting you adjust it accordingly due to COVID. However, in addition to, you may say, well, I don't go to the doctors that much. And you might be a male on here watching and go, well, I don't need female products, right? But that card is listen, I use my card to pay to go to the gym. I use my card to pay for a heating pad. It's so many things that you can use your card for. And sometimes you need a letter of medical necessity in order to obtain these things, which is kind of like a prescription, which they provide for you and your doctor signs off for it. But these are the things that you can also use your card for, because if you go to counseling, if you're medically, okay, I'm diabetic or I'm borderline diabetic, I need to go to a fitness center and go work out. I need a personal trainer. I don't have the money on hand. Well, if you elect $3,000 for the year, when they send you that card, that whole $3,000 is on that card, and for you to utilize and for you to use. The plus side is that if you lose your job during the course of the year, say you spend up to $3,000, they're not going to come after you for it, right? Well, laws change all the time, so then you got to check it. Or the downside is that if you put $3,000 on there and you don't ever use it, you lose it, come the following year. But you can use that money to pay your medical bills. You can use that money to pay. It's like when I tell you, it's a whole list of items that you can actually use that card for. And it's not just, only for prescriptions or only for that. That's just like the dependent card. In regards to childcare, people who have kids that are in school, you're using that money to pay for childcare or to pay your babysitter, because some people just don't have it. It's kind of like, I want to do this, or I have a child that's on the way, or okay, summer's coming up, or summer will be here, let me elect and have this money taken out early, so then I'll be prepared for the summer. And a lot of people don't think that way, but I think that that's a good segue to kind of really think and say, okay,
So,
let me just pre-prepare.
Santeresa, I wanted to jump in there. Could you explain a little bit more about, okay, so is it my money that I'm doing before taxes that I'm
Yeah.
putting?
So it's, yes. So it's before taxes, and there's pre-tax, then they're taking it out of your check on however you get paid, whether it's biweekly, weekly, or whatever. They do deduct it, so they'll split it out and divide it out for the year, and that's how much they'll take out of the check. So they're not just going to take 3,000 at once. I know someone who was like, let me try it out, and they got a flex spending card, and I think they put like 500 on it, and they went to the dentist, and 500 was going like that day. You know what I mean? So I mean, you really have to sit back sometimes and think and say, okay, let me just kind of figure this out. I know with some accounts, some HSA accounts, of spending accounts, if you go to the doctors and say if there's going to be an out of pocket amount, they will mail you the money from off of the card to pay the bill. Now it's your responsibility to take that money and to pay the bill, because some people get the money deposited into their account and won't pay the bill, and then they'll be like, I have this medical bill. But
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of, you still have a responsibility somewhere in there in regards to that. And again, you have to again, look and see, but they have a whole FSAstore.com online that you could shop from. It'll tell you what you could get, what you can't get, what's covered, what's not covered. And again, with COVID, they have opened up. When I first started giving my FSA card, you couldn't get over-the-counter prescriptions at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, over-the-counter medications without a prescription. Now they're allowing for you to get it, but I mean, going to get an ace bandage, getting an ice pack, like all of those things that we think like, oh, is it going to be covered, or I don't have the money right now, I really need to get me a heating pad. Well, no, you could go and you'll see at the stores, it'll say like OTC, you might see HSA, it might like right next to the item, and that'll let you know what'll be covered in the store. And again, it's a Visa card, so you get the card in the mail, you can use the card. I actually have dependent cards. It's the same card, same number in my children's name, so I don't have to be with them for them to use the card to go to the store to purchase what they need to purchase. And they don't necessarily have to be on my insurance, they're in my household, so I'm able to still cover them for that. And then also tuition reimbursement. There's so many people out there who say they want to go to school and they can't afford it. And there's so many companies out there, not that they will cover your whole tuition, but they can make it a little bit easier. And I've seen tuition reimbursement go as high as up to $10,000 for the year to cover you so that you would go back to school. And it might, if you rely totally on that, it may take you a little bit longer, but it's still opportunity for you to say, hey, well, at least, even if it's 500, okay, well, my books are covered. Right? So that kind of lessens some of your expense. And again, you have a responsibility to maintain a grade point average, but you still have opportunity to take advantage of that, and some people don't. Dayna, I want to just kind of go back to you in regards to, we were talking about the 401k program, and a lot of people say like, I don't want to invest my money. The stock market will crash again. I don't want to put money into that. Right.
Right.
I was one of those people, because I'm like, I need all the money I could get, like, so, but it's important that, even if you utilize it or you use it, as a savings account, not necessarily per se a retirement, if you don't want to think along that lines, but just if you could explain that, and just the benefit of utilizing and taking advantage of a 401k program. And then,
Definitely. Well, first of all, like I said, every penny counts. And so what you don't want to do is leave any money on the table, because you need to take advantage of any opportunity to be able to get free money, right? So what that means is a lot of employers out there, and of course, check with your employer. And I am definitely not a financial advisor in any way. There's a lot of improvement that I need to do. But one of the things that I've learned over the years is the matching that takes place with some of these companies. And what I mean by matching is if I have, you know, I don't know, $1,000, if that's how much I get paid every 2 weeks, and I want to invest, you know, 5% of my salary. That would be what, $50? Okay, so every 2 weeks, I'm putting in $50 into my 401k plan. And a 401k, the purpose of it basically is to save up for retirement, right? That's the primary reason. Although some people dip in it for other things from time to time, but we won't go there. So again, the $50 every 2 weeks. So I'm living large. I'm putting my $50 in. Well, the good news is that your employer says, guess what? If you put 50 in, you know, which is 5% of your salary, we're going to match dollar for dollar. This is an example, dollar for dollar up to 5% of your salary. So what that means is if I put 50 in, the company will match it 50. So now I have $100 every 2 weeks, as long as I continue to give it that amount. Now, there might be a maximum. So maybe their maximum is the 5%, but some companies go up to, 8%. I know of one company that actually does and matches dollar for dollar. Now, some employers might match, 50 cents on the dollar, but anything that they are willing to match, go ahead and take advantage of that and try to maximize the amount that you're giving when you first start at the company. Because if you start when you first begin employment there, you're not going to get used to living with a higher amount in your check. And then later on, you want to start putting money in your 401k and you're like, well, dang, $50 a paycheck. I ain't trying to do it. Start off that way. Another tip that I want to add really quick is, so you're giving your $50. We'll go with that same example, right? But we'll say that we're being matched at 8%. So we'll say that we're giving 80 and the company's matching 80. So you're giving your 80, you're giving your 80, you're giving your 80. And then guess what? You get, a raise. Okay. So you find out you get your raise after the first of the year, and you're going to be getting, I'm not really that good at math, but let's say that now, because the 8% has increased, right? So now it's going to be a higher amount, right? Because if you were given 8% of your salary, if you get $1,000 raise, right? Now you're making even more money. So that 8% is going to increase. So why not, if you just got a 10% raise, why don't you up the amount that you're giving putting into your 401k? So that way you're already used to having the lower dollar amount in your check. Before your raise actually takes effect, boost up your savings. Even if you're not going to get more of a match, at least you're increasing the amount that you're saving in your 401k. And that way, as time goes on, you're investing more and more, and it's just going to pay dividends in the end, because you're going to be saving like you should, and you'll have a good, nice, comfortable retirement. Not one that's just, eating ramen noodles every day. You'll actually be able to live a good lifestyle. So that's a big thing. And also, I do want to add that a couple of things that I wouldn't do, or lessons learned for me that I've struggled with throughout the years, is the loans that you can take against your 401k. You can get up to 2 in some cases. You have to check with your individual employer, but also withdrawals. Okay, I have to go there. People are like, well, I can do whatever I want with my money, but you save so hard, you work so hard to save so much money, and then something happens and you need to take money out. That should be your last resort, because when you take money out like that, not only are you setting yourself behind for your retirement, you're also going to be hit a lot with taxes. Yes, thank you, taxes. And penalties. Yes, and penalties. And if you try to defer that tax, because there's a form that you have to fill out, and if you say no, I don't want you to withhold the higher tax or whatever that says, there's a form you got to fill out, and if they're going to get you when you file if you don't put that down, that you took that money out when it comes time to do your taxes. And so the bottom line is, don't touch that money unless it's absolutely necessary. And my advice, it's not professional advice, but if I were you and you had to take money out, try to borrow it first, at least, because at least you won't get hit with the tax, and then you can at least make monthly payments on it. But again, don't touch it at all unless it's necessary, but things come up. So if they do, then at least if you have to do it, do the loan and then the withdrawal. So another thing is with COVID, there are some flexibilities with the 401k in terms of, I believe, how long you have to pay it back. Just check with your employer on what aspects of the CARE Act allow for a little more flexibility with the withdrawal amounts for the 401k as well as loans. There are some changes for that. So just check with your employer, because if you're experiencing issues with COVID, then there's some relief there in terms of the 401k.
Mm-hmm. And so I know, Lydia, you was talking about earlier in regards to 401k. I know you was talking about shopping around. You was talking about rolling it over. So if you want to just talk about that really briefly.
Real briefly, I wanted to jump in there again. I go back to that when you're getting that job and you're getting ready to get that job offer and they've given you the fringe benefits, this is your negotiating hour. You're going to ask those necessary questions. So you would ask, or you can do your research before that to see if that company does a matching and what percentage, because that could be your deciding factor on whether or not you want to go with their plan. Because you don't necessarily have to take the 401k for the agency that you're taking the job with. Your spouse or someone else, you can actually go out and go from another 401 plan that has a better residual. Sometimes on the nonprofit world, they do a different type of formula where they wait until the end of their cycle, their benefit year, and they determine what percentage that they're going to match. So if they were not very profitable, they give out letters, we're not able to match you this year. That's not good, because you chose this plan based on what they said at the onset that they were going to match at 5% or 8%. But then you've been putting in your 5% and your 8%, and then you get this letter that they're, because of budgetary reasons, they're unable to match. Mm-hmm. And so, not saying, you just want to be able to ask those necessary questions and be able to make that informative decision. Now, on the other part about rolling over, a lot of times, again, you get that job, you're in the probationary period, it doesn't work out. You decide this may be not for me, I'm going to exit this job. But you already signed up, you've already matched, and you just left, and you still have this 401k with this agency. Some people have 401k, they got them in 3 different places. It's not a lot of money in there, maybe, but they signed up for these and they didn't know that they could roll over. They didn't know that they could carry it with them. That 401 plan, financial institution, whatever, came in a bargaining. They had a salesperson that sold that product to that agency, right? And they don't have a problem continuing on with you. They have no loyalty to that company, right? They came in, they wanted to get those clients. So you can have a relationship with them. I know some agencies, they want you to go through their HR department. They don't want you to, do your bargaining. However, most 401ks have their own website, right? You can sign on, you can find out information. You don't always, I encourage you to go to your H&R because they are the professionals. This is what they do, but you can find out information on your own. And when enrollment time comes, you can make an informative decision.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And that's really good information to kind of look into. I know it's very more in depth than what we're kind of scratching the surface right now, but that's really something really good to look into in regards to 401k. I know a lot of people don't look into it again. But like Dayna said, your first day of work, if you can secure that and lock that in and start contributing early, you won't miss it later. You trying to play catch up, because when you go into the website, it tell you, like, if you save $100 each paycheck, by the time you get to 15 years, you'll have this much money. And sometimes you be like, wait, let me play catch up and try to throw more money, and then you're struggling, or you just seem it's a little bit
absolutely.
So that is definitely something very, very, very good to look into. Another topic before I know we're kind of close to time that I wanted to just talk about as well, especially because it's COVID, especially because everyone's home, is the mental health aspect
Mhm.
of benefits, right? Um, so a lot of companies offer an employee assistance program, which is a
Mhm.
totally free program that is offered. A lot of times they'd be like, hey, we got an employee assistance program, and they talk absolutely nothing else about it. And then it's kind of like, what is this for? You probably don't even think about it, right? Because you think about like the benefits, you think about like everything else that they're talking about. You think about the discount programs, the free movie theater tickets, maybe discounted. You might think about the equipment that they offer. They might have an intranet with a ton of information. And then you might see like way in the little corner, it might say employee assistance program, and you really don't click on it. Or you might click on it and don't see really any perks. So you click right off of it, right? But I wanted to definitely talk about that, especially now, because a lot of people are dealing with themselves. It's not even dealing with issues. It's dealing with yourself. It's dealing with whatever issues you may have that you might be dealing with. It might be your children. It could be your spouse, even though it says employee assistance program. But the program was built and was geared to assist you and your family, and at any type of level of need. So what does that mean? That means that they give referrals. If you need childcare, they'll refer you to childcare centers. If you are running into homeless issues, they'll give you referrals to go talk to someone else. When you call the number, the people are certified counselors that are there to
Mhm.
talk to you, right? And it's confidential. They don't call your job. They don't tell your job that this person called. They don't report to your job, anything like that. And so you're able to call and to talk, even if mentally you're dealing with something and your brain is spinning, you're suffering from some anxiety. You just had, unfortunately, there's a lot of deaths that's going on, and you can call and you can actually speak to them. And they get you to the point of normalcy, as normal could be. And then, as normal could be. And then afterwards, they'll refer you out to a couple of free counseling sessions. They'll give you some counselors to call. I always say you have to find your right fit. And you go to a counselor and you're able to speak. The reason why I wanted to speak about that is because that service is so important for you to utilize, especially now during COVID. Fortunately, a lot of insurance companies have eliminated the cost of any type of mental health services. So what does that mean? That means that they're giving it to you for free. Normally, mental health is included in your insurance package with your medical package. Some type of way, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, it may be included. You may have to pay a deductible on it. You may have to pay a co-payment on it.
Mhm.
Sidebar, you could go to a nutritionist for free in
I
some
was
cases.
about to say that a
Yeah. So,
nutritionist,
yeah.
talk
So
to a
like
dietitian. Yep.
they give
Mhm.
you those services for free. But now with COVID, they're understanding that a lot of people are dealing with mental health. So they're allowing for you to go talk to counselors, go speak to psychiatrists, and they're not charging you for it. And so some people say, well, I need to go speak to somebody. I can't afford it. Well, right now is the time while the laws are changing, worldwide, while the laws are changing, for you to utilize those services. And that was another part of the reason why we're kind of talking now about our benefits, our perks, what we have on our job, because we pay so much into our jobs. We pay so much money into these benefits, and we're not really looking to see what does that really mean for me. People say, do I got a good benefits package? And what they're looking at is vacation days, sick days, personal days,
Hmm.
holidays. But it's so much more to a good benefits package, because your benefits package could be, maybe 5 sick days, or 5 personal days. You might have your 2 weeks vacation. But then what happens if I am on a verge of a mental breakdown? Laws have changed even now where, excuse me, where disability, depression and things like that is included under disability, where you could take leave for disability, for going through depression. I need to take a mental leave. I need to detach for some things. Now, your responsibility would be, you have to go to a counselor. You can't just say, well, I need to take a medical leave, I'm taking temporary disability, short-term disability, I'm coming off of work. You can't just necessarily do that. You have to, take the proper steps and the proper protocols to make sure that that's covered. And then you won't have to worry about using your sick days or your sick times and using that time to kind of detach. So, I mean, it's so many things in regards to your benefits. I was looking through the comments. Christina has stated even your chiropractor services are included with your insurance. She said they normally do about 24 visits a year or something like that. That's true. Physical therapy, that's included where you can go to physical therapy. A lot of people that's kind of norm and common, but you could do physical therapy and utilize that.
Yeah, massage therapy as well.
Yeah.
Check with your carrier, but I mean, I've even seen where people have used their card, their health card, their Visa card for approved massage therapy services as well as acupuncture. So those are some other things that are covered.
I know when I had the weight loss surgery, and I was able to, go to do physical therapy, but I was able to also do personal training, and that was covered under my insurance. So, I mean, it's so many things that we don't look into, we don't utilize. And there's so many things that we're paying out of pocket because we feel like we have to, but you've already paid out of pocket when you're already paying monthly for your insurance every single month, and it's coming out of your pocket, and you don't necessarily have to be sick in order to utilize your insurance. Your insurance covers so much more, even the wellness programs that they offer. The pre-diabetic. And let me just put this plug in. Shop around for your medication, you guys. Shop around for medication. It's a market. It's a business. I know that you're used to going to the same pharmacist all the time because that's where all your medication goes and it's easier to track. But let me say this. If you're diabetic, if you live in New Jersey, ShopRite is there. ShopRite offers free diabetic medication to their patients. If you go there, metformin, all that stuff is free. And that's just to kind of put the plug in to say it's so much out there that we just have to look and utilize and take advantage of, because you just never know what's covered and what's not. And sometimes, again, even with your flexible spending card, or with certain services, you may have to go to the doctor, and your doctor, for him to say it's medically necessary for you to have it. But I'd rather do that than to pay additional out of pocket, again, when I'm already paying about $15,000 a year for you to cover me with insurance. And I'm only using that for my one doctor's appointment, that one free checkup wellness appointment a year, but it's so many other things that it could cover. And I was asked in regards to the flexible spending account, a lot of times you can make your elections when you're making your elections for your insurance. However, with COVID, they've opened it up. So, and they did that because some people are like, I'm not going to the doctors. I don't want to contribute any more money. Some people are like, give me more money on my card because I need to go to the doctors a little bit more. Or I foresee that I'm going to have some issues before this year is out. So again, you have to check with your HR department. And again, it's so much information and it's so hard to cover everything, just tonight, but we just wanted to kind of touch upon some points. So to kind of not, to start wrapping it up, I want to talk about, okay, I got this job, right? And I'm doing a job, everything's great, everything's fine. So I think, and I get called into the office and they give me a pink slip. And they terminate me, right? And I'm like, well, it's New Jersey, it's at will. They could do that, I guess. I would just have call unemployment. But you have some rights. There are certain things that we can do, or some information that we can kind of take hold to. That talking to Lydia and Dayna, it's a lot of good information out there. So I want to start with, let's start with Lydia, and you could talk about at will, you could talk about like some of the information that you found out. And again, you have to research this in your own state, your own area, and find out if it applies, but it's some very good information And then Dayna, you could kind of piggyback and come in and talk about
Sure.
yes. So
Certainly. So as you stated, you got that job, everything was going good. So you thought, and then that you were called in the office, and because New Jersey is one of the 31 states that is considered at will, um, that employer may say, it's just not working out. We thank you for your services. And just for the record, the slip is in pink. There is no pink slip. But they no longer need your services, and you're there like, wow, what did I do? So forth. And so a lot of people feel because it's at will. A lot of times, remember I talked about that orientation period where you're signing a lot of documentation. There is a form that's going to be given to you that talks about if you're in one of those states that as well, because they are mandated to make you aware that you are joining on to a at will company, and you sign that you are aware that it's an at will company. So what does that mean? Does that mean that they can just come? Yes, they will come. However, there is such a thing of wrongful termination. There are some things, grounds for wrongful termination. In my research, I found out that if you're in a company, again, things are so changing. I'm so old school, but if your a company is giving you doing text or email, company inter-office emails and things, and in that employer or supervisor, immediate supervisor person wrote that you're doing a great job, and you're doing a great job and you have a future with this company, right? And they gave you that as an email, and you have that in your own little inbox, right? That is along with your employee handbook. If you wanted to pursue and have a conversation at the labor board, the New Jersey Labor Board, and you wanted to have a conversation in front of a judge, a labor judge, about that you were doing such a great job, and there were no paper trails saying that there wasn't, that's a discussion to be had. Now, does that mean you're going to be reinstated? It may necessarily mean you may not get that job back. But if there's any kind of retribution, if there's any kind of severance or things like that, say you were just suing because you were out sick, and they got tired of hearing that you can't come back, or whatever the terms was, and they said they're going to not continue with your employment. There are things that happen, even though you had at will and you signed that, you still can appeal it. You still can do arbitration. It really depends on, again, I talked about checking with your company if they have a bargaining contract. You're part of a union. There are some grievance process. There's some steps to before they can actually do it. Even though you're in the state of New Jersey or one of the 31 states, it is good to know that agency, what is the process of termination? Is it a part where you can do some arbitration? Is there something before you want to call your lawyer? Definitely at will doesn't mean if they have given you a promise. Another thing I want to mention is if you were called into the office and they said, we are phasing out your department. We're no longer going to be using the cardboard box department. We're moving on, whatever. They gave you a reasoning, and they basically were saying that you were being let go, or that department. But they kind of tell you it's not just you, everybody's being let go. And you're at will, you pick up your things, you leave. However, you're home a week, and then you find out that they're posting ads for those positions, for that department that they phased out. They're looking for people to fill that position. That is grounds right there for you to also have an appointment with the labor board, because now not only are they're not reducing, they just didn't want you, which they could have just said that. Because if they just said we no longer use your services, they no longer needed your services. But if they said to you, we are letting you go because we are no longer having this department. We're doing that, and which would be fine too. But if they hired a whole new group and there was no paper trail, you can, even though you're in an at-will state, you have grounds to have a conversation and have report that for wrongful termination.
Does
I can
Christina
go
ask,
on I can go on and on for different scenarios, but basically what I want to say about that, in the past, many people, because they did sign that form at will, that they thought they had no grounds, if they wanted to phase you out, whether it was age discrimination, just personality or something other, decisions making, that they had no voice. And I want to say, if nothing else, the takeaway is that depending on what the situation is, depending on the research you would do for your particular agency in terms of if they have a bargaining contract or have any resolve, just because you signed that at will, you may have a second recourse.
now does Christina ask, does at will guidelines still apply if you're tenured?
Well, no, because again, that's a bargaining contract.
Okay.
Because and they could speak to this as well. She'll probably talk to some companies. Like I said earlier, the executive orders come down. They have state laws that certain codes that they implement. However, when the unions come in and they do certain bargaining, there are waivers that are signed, and so they waive not to implement this particular initiative or this particular a change. But because you're part of that union, or you come up under Title I, Title V, or whatever that is, it wouldn't affect you, right? Because that decision was made by that union. And in most cases, it's to your benefit. But sometimes you have to know, I signed up for this, they waived this. For instance, I've been speaking for COVID. I was hearing someone say that particular agency was a healthcare facility. They were something around testing, right? The union opted not to, that the staff would not have to, that they would have to be tested every 7 days, right? And they signed on this thing. This wasn't something that the individual employee decided to do. The union spoke for them, but they signed on to let them do that, And so a lot of times, in most cases, they're benefiting for you. I mean, they're advocating for you, but you need to know exactly what that bargaining, and those, it may be like 150 pages, but it's good to know exactly what am I, what are some of the things, if I'm in an at-will state, if I'm tenure, what are the terms of this contract? And those contracts are usually, sometimes they're for like 2 years, 3 years, but when the contracts, or what are the things when the contract isn't signed? Because sometimes you have that period where they haven't signed. That's when they go on strike, right? The contract hasn't been signed. Am I still, well, in those cases like that, when the new contract hasn't been signed, you're still going on what the old contract was, right? And so the new perks and things that may be coming up or being challenged or being, want to be implemented will not come into effect. So it really depends on what that contract is. So that employee needs to know, be informed of what, of course, and I'm always, because I'm speaking from New Jersey, and I happen to work in education, but I knew that we had a previous governor who went after tenure, and they basically want to go after unions and to demolish all of those rights that they had. And so if you're going to go with that, you need to know how streamlined your bargaining contract is. Because you may say, well, I'm in a union, but if the union isn't worth the paper that is in, you might not even want to do that.
Yeah. So I think the key thing would be really to, make sure you read through your paper
Absolutely.
and do
Before
that.
you sign on and say that. And some things are depending on if it's a government job, federal, state government, sometimes you do not have to be a part of the union. If you work for the state, some certain things that come down as statutes, everyone is eligible for it. You don't have to be part of a union. I was a federal employee, and everything that came under Title 38, I got it, whether I was union or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'd be the key thing. So Dayna, you was explaining to me earlier, which is something, you guys, I just learned something totally new today. Really excited about that.
Great. I love to get new stuff.
Yeah. So, real quick, Dayna, tell us about the alternative dispute resolution. Because I just learned about that. I don't know if it's here in New Jersey. I don't know if
we're going to check it out, Dave. We're going to find out.
Yeah, I don't know if all companies offer it, but I think that this is really, really great. It's really exciting. But
yeah, well, you see a lot of companies, and it's really not rocket science. Basically, it's really an alternative dispute resolution process, and all that is, it's a fancy name for something that means the legal system. It's expensive. People are sue happy, right? So you even see doctors' offices do this, and some employers do this because employees sue companies, right? Employees sue employers. So what it is some employers, when they hire people, they have them sign the handbook, and they also have them somehow acknowledge that they understand that the employer, if there is a dispute between employee and employer, right, that the employee agrees that if there is one, that they won't directly go to the legal system. They agree to participate in some type of dispute resolution process that the company has. Okay.
Oh.
If they do it, though, a lot of people think that their hands are tied, like, okay, well, I guess I can't sue. And that's not necessarily true. It's just that you have to use their process. So like you guys were saying earlier, the key is find out what that company's process is. If I start working for this company, later on down the line, if something comes up, what do I do? That's the first thing. So let's go back. So this company they've had you sign the acknowledgement saying that you're willing to participate. And then some employers offer legal service. So let's say you use that program. What happens is, if you are participating in it and the dispute continues and it doesn't get resolved, at some point, some employers, check with your benefits department, will provide a certain dollar amount. Usually it's somewhere around the neighborhood of $2,000 max, but it is something. And usually what that covers is initial consultation regarding like the mediation or arbitration that arose out of the dispute. So whatever the process, the escalation process in, like, okay, so we did this and it wasn't resolved. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. So there's a hierarchy of the process that you go through when you're disputing. So if it does keep escalating, there are some fees that the company provides as a benefit so that you can yourself seek legal counsel. And so again, it may include initial consultation, negotiation of the mediation or arbitration that you're going to go through, and also those benefits would go toward representation of you in connection with the mediation or arbitration. So while it's still not fully reimbursed, like I'm sure, there's a chance it might be more than that. At least that's some type of coverage. And you just need to check with your employer to see how much they are willing to pay or what that process looks like. But I mean, every penny counts, like I said before. So just check that out. You don't really look to disagree with anyone, but it's always good to be proactive and check out what that would look like if it happens.
Yeah. And that's always key. Like if you don't know, ask. And I think that's basically what it is. Before you panic, if you need any kind of service, I know sometimes people wait until a traumatic experience occurs before they start doing the research to know what's available to them in regards to a service. And sometimes it's not even traumatic. Sometimes it could be something so simple that, that you can, deal with, and that you could handle through your insurance or through your employer or through your benefits that you didn't know was necessarily offered to you. And again, the laws are constantly changing. Check your emails, guys. Check your emails, because your job's probably emailing you about the changes to make you aware. And
Absolutely.
they might be open enrollment, might be open again. It might have been, you might have said, hey, I had this dental service, but I really wanted the bigger package. I didn't know that I needed so much work. And upgrade your services. Change why your enrollment is open right now, if it's still open. Or just to make yourself aware. I think that's the key. The point of this information session was really just to say, hey, it's so many things that um, we're not taking advantage of, and we work hard and we go to work every day, and we're paying these insurance and benefits. And a lot of times people are like, oh, you got benefits, so that's good, and they're thinking about just your regular insurance benefits that oh, you could go to the doctors, but there's so many other things that can be covered. Lastly, I want to just say, check with your job too, because they offer legal services. You could pay, I think I pay about $7 a month, not seven, yeah, probably about $7 per check or something like that. And I have free legal services, and it doesn't cover every single thing, but they'll help you with, it doesn't cover criminal, let me say that, but they offer services where you could talk to a lawyer. They can help you do a will. They can help you do, if you're having needed a letter drafted, if you're having certain issues. And those are the things that, you may not think that you needed, but even now, when, COVID happened, if you had it, you may be having a dispute with your landlord because of, you're having financial difficulties. You might be, furloughed right now. Okay. But you could contact that lawyer. You could contact that legal services. You could contact your employee assistance program, and you could talk to these people to find out what to do. You do not have to suffer at home with worry and anxiety, worrying about what to do. They have preventative plans that they offer. A lot of places, a lot of insurances offer preventative. They offer nurses that you could call. They offer doctors that you could call, that you could talk to. And again, the key thing is really just to do your research. And what we wanted to do was kind of spark and put that plug out there so that you can know that, hey, I might have this available at my job, but they just didn't advertise it, or maybe I overlooked it. That you could actually just go back and double back and check and say, hey, I got this resource. And you never know what you may discover. You may discover that you got a whole separate retiree plan, and they putting money away for you that you didn't even know that you were receiving. They didn't even really tell you that you was grandfathered into something, or anything. It could be any single thing. But the key thing is really just to look and to do your research and just to look at and find it out. So I just want to open up for 2 to 3 minutes to check Facebook, see if there's any questions out there that we could possibly answer before we end this live. While I'm waiting to see if there's any more questions, I want to thank everyone for coming out and for tuning in.
For asking us. Thank you.
The duration of our live, and listen. You could always later on, if you have questions later on down the road, you can always post your questions in the question field, and we could possibly get back to you. But the key thing is to contact your HR department, or contact and do your research for your local state, and find out what it is for you for that moment.
Yeah. Hey, Santeresa, there was one other thing I wanted to add really quick.
No problem.
If we don't have any questions out there, I know you can check that first.
We just
real quick.
Yeah. Not yet. We don't have any questions.
Okay, real quick, because when you mentioned about just do your research and everything, and because you got to educate yourself. Since a lot of us are working at home right now, and what I've seen an increased trend on is, people working, we're just working from our kitchens, we're working from our living rooms, we're working from our, bedrooms, we're sitting up in our bed possibly, or we're sitting up in a non-ergonomic chair, and we're hunching over, and we're doing a lot of things that aren't good for our posture. And so what I recommend is, if you're having I'm not like telling you to go out and make a workers' comp claim or anything like that. But what I am telling you is that check with your employer to see if they are willing to provide you with a chair or some type of like maybe a stand to go on top of the desk where you can raise it and lower it. So that way you can stand while you're working. Any type of equipment that will help you be able to maintain your posture. Because I know sometimes you might get a crook in your neck because you're sitting there on your laptop and you're not really, you don't have the type of equipment that we have in an office, like office equipment. You're just basically sitting at the kitchen table and your arms might be up like this, and then you're going to end up having, you know, a crook in your neck or a back or your neck problems. And so check with your employer on if there's a process for requesting, you know, an office desk or a good chair. See what type of coverage there will be for that, because you never know, they may decide to give you one or reimburse you.
Mm-hmm. That's good information, because we were kind of thrown into this work from home. It was kind of like, I'm at work today, I'm home tomorrow, for those who don't work from home. So a lot of people were not prepared for that at home. And so their beds turned into their desks, it turned into their, you know, that space for them. So that's very, very, very good information to kind of gleam upon, because
the only thing I would add to that also, because we're talking about perks and saving money. So those of us that are working home, many of us who don't have that extra expense of the transportation going back and forth to work, that is some of that income that can be put to increasing our 401ks and that money, because we don't have that added expense. We're cooking now, so we're not ordering out food and, you know, different things where we can sort of set a goal that we can up that, as they said, up that 8%. You want to just do that before the raise comes, right? So you're kind of used to that. And then the raise will be a little extra. But there are ways, because we're not actually, if you really looked at how much money you spent going back to work and eating and joining in on different birthday clubs and all this other kind of stuff, that someone's selling something and those kinds of things, you will be able to invest in your retirement. So I wanted to definitely say that this is a time that, even though we're home and we're going to transition and learning how to do that, it is a way that we can actually make some changes with our retirements.
And the last thing, because since we're talking about retirement, and then I'm going to close this out. The last thing that I want to say, check with your employer. Some jobs offer a stock option to purchase. It may be extremely low right now because you're home, and it might be a good time to invest in that as well. So, I mean, it's just, again, you guys, there's so many things out there and opportunities and resources and things that's out there that, you know, you could look into, even in regards to life insurance. I know your jobs normally offer it. You get a percentage, or you'll get like double your whatever your salary is. That's what they normally offer. You could offer more, you could purchase more. And then they also offer where you could buy additional at a lower rate, because you're purchasing it through your company that you're able to keep even if your job ends. So again, those are just certain things to look into. Certain things to kind of take advantage of, just to kind of put it out there so that we could, you know, again, there's some people who seize the moment, who use those services, and you're wondering how they're getting things done. But when I tell you that $15,000, you're already investing it. So you might as well do research to figure out how can I utilize it. And you might say, where did I get the $15,000 from? That was my number from a couple of years ago. That's what I paid. You look on your W-2 form, and when you see how much you made for the year, and you're like, that's not what I agreed to, but then you look at the difference between taxes and then also the big lump amount is your insurance. And the only thing that you're saying, I buy insurance, I have insurance, I only use my insurance, I haven't been sick. But there's so many other things that you can use your insurance for. Again, you know, you have the fitness programs. Again, you have the wellness programs. They also, they may have the employee discount programs where you're looking to buy stuff. Some places have where you could get discounts on your cell phones just because of where you work at, discounts on buying a car just because of where you work at. Some credit unions will accept you in just because you work at certain places or in certain locations. So again, it's just the research that you do that, your company may have partnered with other people, and you may say, hey, my company is small, I don't feel, but there's always something for someone. Check your insurance. If you're getting medical insurance, check that. A lot of companies, again, offer the employee assistance program. That could be your number one key to kind of start with, so that you can kind of start with it. So I just wanted to put that out there. I want to thank you, Dayna and Lydia, again for coming on to the first show for Inspired by You to kind of talk about, just business, things with businesses that we tend to overlook a lot of times. I hope this will not be the first time that we come together to kind of talk and share information. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in with us on tonight. There aren't any more questions, so I just want to say, everybody have a good night, be safe, be blessed. Any final words from you two ladies?
Nope, I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to the next chat.
Cool.
And I want to thank you too. It's a conversation to be had. I'm certainly sure that people will view this and have some other questions, and we're certainly open to continue the discussion.
Yes. All right, you guys have a great night. Take care. Be safe.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.